Hey guys, welcome back to the Rise and Slice Golf Show podcast. My name is Theo, and a bit of a different start to this week's episode. This is episode 41. Me and Chenji were supposed to do episode 41 together, but Chenji's away. So there wasn't going to be an episode this week, but I have the Mark Bentley episode that was supposed to be episode 42. That is what you're clicking on now. That's what you're listening to now. Please enjoy this amazing episode. Thank you to Mark. Thank you to Forrest Pines. Thank you to Dane Duffin for last week's episode. That was an absolute banger. If you haven't listened to it or watched it already, please go back and watch it or listen to it. It's a great watch, great listen. This week's episode is an absolute banger. Great information. Great. I'm so glad Mark Bentley said yes to us. All the links for Mark and Dane are down below. If you require a lesson, go book with them. I promise you will not be disappointed. That is a rice and slice guarantee. I don't know if that's a thing, but I promise you it's worth your time and, worth the money that you're paying. Back to normal. Oh, by the way, big one. We keep mentioning at the beginning of the podcast, episode 42. It was supposed to be episode 42, but we had to change some things around. It is now episode 41. Please sit back, enjoy, and back to our regular programming next week. Take care. Bye. We probably should have changed clothes because it would make more sense.
Also, we're going to have an episode of doing it remotely and then coming back in real person.
Okay, so first of all, welcome back, guys, to Rice and Slice Golf Show podcast. My name is Theo. Gentleman to my right is Chenji. This is episode 42.
Which you might, be familiar with our outfit.
So the outfit looks the same as episode 40. The place is exactly the same. We're wearing the same clothes, which we probably should have changed clothes, but we didn't. But here we are. We have the pleasure and the privilege of sitting down with
somebody who's been in our podcast for many times, but not in person.
We've spoken about this gentleman. Out of the 40 or 42 episodes, we've probably spoken about this gentleman more than 50% of the podcasts.
Probably his name popped up.
His name popped up
times.
Yeah, a lot. Even if it's for 30 seconds, we're like, oh, Mark wouldn't approve of this.
Exactly.
One of them. But we have Mark Bentley on the podcast. Mark, it is so good to have you. I'm so happy we finally, sorted a date to get you down. You are my life savior. I want to say you are the reason why my putting is good.
Really? Just kidding. Just kidding.
You are genuinely the reason why my putting is good. I'm so glad I found you when I did. I was desperate, and as you have texts, proving how desperate I was.
Very desperate.
But welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
No, it is our pleasure. We had the pleasure of you and Dane
Duffin.
Dane Duffin walking the 9 holes with us. So Dane, obviously, you've heard on the episode 40. Where we went around with Dane, and Dane kind of was he's like a course management expert. Is that the right way of saying
it?
Strategist. That's the word I always forget. And we were lucky enough that Mark was with us and giving us tips on the green, which was obviously just as helpful. Very helpful for Chenji, because obviously I've had 2 very key lessons with Mark, and I was I've learned a lot, and it was good for you to kind of learn the very, very, very basics of Aimpoint, which we will get into a little bit. Mm-hmm. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate your time.
I think I hope you've had a great day here at Forrest Pines, and it's easy to talk to you about Aimpoint because you've gone through the full learning process. Chenji hasn't yet, so I didn't really get into too much detail with you, but I just said, if you were using Aimpoint, this is how you do it.
Absolutely.
So but a couple of reads produced breaks that I think you were surprised with.
Would have never thought.
And that's the main thing, because we spoke about this when I first had a lesson with Mark, where Mark put T-pegs next to holes. And was it 7 or 8 T-pegs?
I can't remember. It was in September last year.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was a few T-pegs. And before we even started the lesson, Mark said, okay, just reading this part, before we do any aim point, before we do anything, which T-peg do you think the break is? And I said something like, it's on the second T-peg.
Yeah.
T-peg. And then we ended the lesson, and then he was like, okay, so what about now? And then I was like, Mark, I think this is like on the 8th or 9th T peg, and obviously he was right. But it's Aimpoint. I think in your world is it big?
It's big, getting bigger.
I am genuinely surprised why anybody, like everybody, doesn't use Aimpoint, because it's life changing. Well, if you're into golf and you're struggling to read greens, even if you're good at reading greens, or even if you think you're a good putter, you can be so much better if you learn Aimpoint. I've discovered this, obviously, but I want to talk to you first of all before getting into Aimpoint.
Okay.
I want to talk to you about you. First and foremost, you're a putting coach.
I am, yeah.
So why are you a putting coach rather than your traditional, I don't know, like short game coach or iron? Why are you so specific on putting?
I came to professional golf later than most guys that you'll be familiar with as coaches.
Right.
So I turned pro in my late 40s.
No way. I didn't know that.
Did you not know that?
No, I did not know that.
Chenji got my life story.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I was with Dane walking on the other side of the fairway.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I turned pro in my late 40s, and coming from a business background, one of the principles that I brought forward into my golf coaching was you can't be a jack of all trades.
Okay.
And a master of none. Mm-hmm. So somebody once said to me, if you specialize in something, people will always seek out your services. Mm-hmm. So I could not begin to compete with long game coaches who have been coaching how to hit the ball for 10, 20, 30 years. They've got more information on long game coaching in their little finger than I would have in my entire body.
Okay.
So my thoughts were, I'm in my late 40s. I'm soon going to be 50. I'm now 60. I don't want to be trying to hit the ball because you have to walk the walk as well as talk the talk, I believe, as a coach to a degree. Putting is something that you can do for as long as you're able to there isn't the dynamics and the ballistics in putting. So I thought, right, looking at longevity, I can coach putting for years. I then Googled putting coaches in the UK, and there were literally, you could count them on one hand back then. So I thought, right, I'm going to open a putting studio. And I laughingly called my garage at the time a putting studio. It was open to the rafters. It was breeze block walls. It was a curtain down one side.
Is this the same garage that I visited?
Yeah, it changed over the years.
I was going to say, because what I saw was definitely a golf studio.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say.
This was day one.
Okay.
But what it did have was a Quintic system.
Yep.
Which, for anybody that's experienced Quintic or hasn't experienced Quintic, that's like a launch monitor for putters. So tells you a mind-boggling amount of information. And I thought, I'll specialise in putting. So I wanted to coach putting, and I wanted to fit putters. And I was lucky enough to be associated with a putter manufacturer who was based in Macclesfield at the time, called Ra Putters. The owner of Ra since retired and moved abroad, so Ra don't exist anymore. But yeah, I was custom fitting, custom built putters. Literally everything about it was custom built. So using Quintic in my garage. And so that's why I chose putting. There were very, very few putting coaches in the UK. There were dozens of pros coaching the long game just in my geographical area, all trying to undercut each other on price in a race to the bottom, giving away their time for what I thought was nothing. Mm-hmm. And I thought, right, if I specialise in something, then I need to know, or try and get to know, absolutely everything about not a lot. So that's my definition of a specialist, whether it's a knee specialist or a heart specialist. They know everything there is to know about not much. So I delved into researching putting, and I learnt so much from the guys at Quintic. Obviously, I went down the PGA qualification and passed that. Going back to school after 36 years of not being at school was a bit of an eye-opener.
Yeah.
And doing exams again. But yeah, came through all that with flying colours and have been doing putting ever since. I can't remember the last time I gave a long game lesson until I saw Chenji today.
Until today, you
And I
gave
thought-
some tips.
And I thought,
He couldn't stop. Like it was like,
I just know.
Chenji, you're so. Press that button.
Don't swear.
that's what. No, it wasn't that bad, but it was just so obvious. I
Yeah.
thought you just got to. This man needs a bit of help.
Yeah, sometimes it's obvious for me as well to see other people, but I am the last person to give anybody any tips.
Yeah.
So I'm like, just do you. It's your problem. It's it's nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
But obviously, in your case, you know way more than what I will ever know. So you have the authority of stepping in and say, Chenji, I feel like you're doing this and this wrong, and it worked. It helped.
It worked,
out.
absolutely.
And after like a 10-minute, like a lesson, it worked out. Quickly, I want to get into because I didn't realize that you got into professional golf so late in your career, in your life, shall we say, compared to other pros when they turn pro at like 18, 19, 20.
Yeah.
And they grew up around pro shops, around golf clubs.
That's right.
Did you have that lifestyle growing up? Like, were you playing golf when you were like a junior?
Oh yeah, I started when I was 10.
Okay.
We lived. My family house was on a golf course. You
wicked.
Fell out of bed. You're on the first tee. So,
No way.
So my dad was the chairman of the club, and my mum played golf. So yeah,
Okay.
born into a golfing family.
Okay,
we all
perfect.
played golf. I think it was a condition of being born. You had to be a golfer.
That's really cool.
And whereabouts is that? The golf course?
That was at Hull Golf Club.
Okay.
We lived in a village called Kirkella, and I was a member at Hull for over 30 years.
Wicked. What were you doing before becoming a professional PGA?
Okay, so we had a family business which was a commercial laundry, an industrial laundry. And we did a lot of work for the NHS and for hotels and workwear, and we basically covered the M62 corridor up to Newcastle, down to Sheffield, Lincoln.
Wow.
And that's where I was explaining to Chenji on the course, giving him an abridged version of my life story, that I got the idea of specialising because the business started in 1890 but ceased to trade in 2005. And the reason it ceased was because we were up against specialists who we had three types of customer base: hospitals, hotels, and workwear. And we were faced with competition from laundry companies who just did one of those three activities. And I was fighting three losing battles.
Right.
So the writing was on the wall, and we looked at restructuring the business, but that financially was not an attractive proposition. So I looked to exit, and I spent 2-3 years building the business to sell it. And yeah, so that business ceased operation in 2005. I think I was fourth generation, and that's probably the hardest business decision I've ever had to take, to stop something or have to stop something that had been running in the family for over a century.
I can imagine.
Yeah, really difficult. It was a heart and a head thing. My heart said, don't do it. My head said, you've got to do it.
You've got no choice.
We had no choice. That's right. So the lesson I learned from that was a jack of all trades, a general operator, cannot compete with a specialist.
Yes, I agree.
So the specialist will always win.
Was it easy for you to become was it not an easy decision, but were you always in the back of your head, were thinking, okay, if I didn't do this job, I'm going to become a putting coach?
No.
Or just a golf coach?
Or just a golf coach?
I think so. So I'd worked in the family business straight from college.
Right.
So I knew nothing other than that job. That was my job. That was my life.
Yeah.
I knew who I was. I knew what I was doing every day when I got up in the morning. I knew where I was going to work. I knew roughly what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. And then that all ended. And that was really a very difficult adjustment to make for a guy, what would it be, in my mid-40s.
Wow. Yeah.
So 43, I think I was.
Yeah.
Needed to work. Needed to bring income in. And so I was locked out of that industry as a condition of the sale. I couldn't go back into that particular sector. So I thought, well, the only thing I know anything about is golf. That's the only. How sad's that?
Well, to us, it's very normal.
I feel like
42
outside of
episodes
our
in.
careers,
yeah.
So golf had always been my hobby, it'd been my passion, and I had an enthusiasm for the game.
At that
in
point,
the
what
same
was
way
your
you did.
handicap? 2005.
It would be 2005. I don't know, low single figures, 4. I want to say 4, maybe 5.
So
I don't know.
you definitely played a lot of golf while you were doing your normal job, shall we say?
Yeah, after the sale of my business, my handicap went down to 0.4.
Oh, wow.
And I finished my amateur days at Ganton Golf Club. And if you're off, was it 0.7? Beg your pardon, 0.7.
Yeah.
So I was a one handicap. If you're a one handicap at Ganton, you can probably consider yourself a plus handicap golfer anywhere else.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you've played it, but it's
No,
tough.
not yet.
Yeah.
It's a difficult course, so yeah.
It's one of the best courses in the country. In fact, I think it's like top 10 courses in the UK. Probably.
It's
Like
certainly
in England.
Yorkshire's best course.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's held the Walker Cup, the Ryder Cup, the Solheim Cup, the Curtis
Wow.
Cup.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's a special bit of ground.
So what?
And then actually, I think it was really, Mark was about to mention, if you pass by, if you've ever played at Ganton Golf Club and you look at the board, right? Was it 2007, 2008?
2008, 2009.
2009.
Yeah.
He won every single competition.
Well, all the main ones.
No
yeah,
way. That's
yeah.
wicked.
Obviously not the ladies' competition.
Yeah, but still, that's very cool.
So I had a purple patch. Yeah, I did. And
Wait, what's that purple patch?
a purple patch is a good run.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
You not heard of a purple
I've never
patch?
heard of that, but I know that now.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
English is my third language.
Yeah,
Just
pretty
to-
much. Wow. Okay. Very, very cool. What was the transition like from? Obviously, you sold your business.
Yeah.
You were playing golf nonstop because you had time.
Yep.
And then was it like, okay, I'm going to become a putting coach now?
No, I sold the business, started to play golf again because I'd not really been able to play golf very much up until that point because of the pressures of work. And then started to play my best golf, which resulted in me playing good golf at Ganton, but then got injured. I was out of golf with an elbow injury for a year. And I thought, what can I do to improve my game when I can't pick up a golf club? So I had both elbows operated on.
Oh, wow.
One put me out for 6 months and 6 months then for the other one. So I got hold of a guy who I'd met 25 years earlier, who's called Carl Morris. And Carl Morris is a mind coach.
Oh wow.
And I had a habitual habit of messing up or not finishing off a good round, and I couldn't get beyond. I'd reached the end of a dead end road in my head. I couldn't finish off a good round. Couldn't understand why. So I initially got in touch with Carl and I said, I need some help to do this, and then I ended up working alongside him really for about 3 years, helping him. He runs talks and gives seminars on how elite sports people think and perform, either on the golf course or the football pitch or the rugby pitch or whatever sport they're playing. So Carl's coached multiple major champions. He's been in the Ryder Cup team room, coaches Walker Cup players. I believe he coached Manchester United under Ferguson.
That's
in the
amazing.
Ferguson era. So the man is. He sits at the top table of coaches. When Carl speaks, it's worth listening to.
Oh, big time.
So I was very lucky to spend time with Carl, and in organising events for him, learnt an awful lot from him. I attended his courses, passed his courses, which are called the Mind Factor course, and they're held every November in Manchester. If people want to look at the Mind Factor, for every level of golfer, I'd recommend that they look at that, because the mental game is the hardest game on the golf course. It's just as important as the technical game. And people
big time.
People think the golf's just the swing. There's so much more to it than that.
No.
So got in touch with Carl, worked with Carl, and then I thought, because I was struggling in my own life to know what to do.
Yeah.
I didn't know who I was anymore, and that gave me my first exposure really to coaching people, because I got hold of a couple of friends who had, let's say they had anchor issues on the golf course, quite often seen sword fighting bushes with their driver and that sort of thing. So got hold of a couple of them and said, listen, let me share with you what I've learned from working with Carl and help them. Yeah. And that was my first exposure to coaching and seeing somebody improve. And that was like a drug. It became a very addictive feel. I thought, this is great. I love helping people.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
And then I thought, right, I don't want to be a mind coach, but I love golf. And if I could coach the technical side of the game, knowing what I know about the mental side of the game, I'm going to become a more holistic coach, more complete coach. So I went down the PGA route, and it was during that journey I was attached to this putter manufacturing company. So working with them, it kind of just flowed on that probably the part of the game that this bit gets affected mostly, is that the right word? But to a greater extent is on the green. Mm-hmm. People have no fear of standing on a tee with a driver trying to hit a fairway and knock it 250, 300 yards down the fairway, but they get the heebie-jeebies over a 3-foot putt.
Yep.
So applying the mental skills to golf, I thought I can have the biggest impact on putting. And then looking at how many putting coaches there were in the UK, there was definitely room for me.
There's like a big gap in the market. It's
huge.
It's amazing.
But now that's changed.
Yeah.
You Google putting, everybody's a putting expert now.
Well,
no, but think about it. Putting is half the round.
It's more than half the round. It's the putter you're going to use a lot more than your driver.
So if obviously it depends on ability.
Yeah.
But if you take a tour player, mm-hmm. I attended a lecture by a guy called Dave Peltz, and Dave Peltz said nobody puts too well. So even a tour player, nobody puts too well. And for a tour player, it's 43% of their game. So for everybody else, it's more than that.
Yeah.
So if you say roughly 50% of your game for an average golfer, well, if I can make you 10% better, wow, I don't know how you could get 10% better. So if you're shooting 80 and I make you 10% and half of your shots, 40 of your shots are putts, well, I've just changed that to 76 because I'm going to make you 10% better.
Yeah.
I don't know how you could hit it 10% further and get better.
Yeah,
or 10% closer and get better.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I can improve your putting by 10%, make a big difference.
That's doable. I mean,
quickest way to get it's the lowest hanging fruit in golf. It's the easiest way to reduce your score is to get better at putting.
It's not about the forgiveness.
No, it's
about
no, it's not
putting.
about the forgiveness.
No, it's
about the pud giveness.
It's me before. You say how you said earlier how there's a lot more putting coaches out there now than what there was 15 years ago or 20 years ago when you started. You've done a very good job of staying on top of your game, because when I Googled putting coaches in the UK, you were like the second person that I found, and I asked you like, not what's the secret of being on top of the Google search page, because there's a lot of people that spend so much money to learn the algorithm and to make sure that they're on top of that Google page. You were like, I don't know, I just do what I always do. So that just goes to show how good you actually are at what you do, that it just puts you on top of the page. And obviously it's a scary thing messaging you or anybody for like, look, I know exactly what I'm doing wrong. No, sorry, I'm struggling with putting. Can you please help me put? And with me, I'd rather go to a specialist, shall we say. I want to go to somebody that specifically teaches me about putting. I don't want to go to to my local pro that's just going to look at me and go, oh yeah, just aim it, you're pushing it or you're pulling it. I wanted to learn something more, and that's where I ran into you, and that's where I've learned about Aimpoint. So I want to get into Aimpoint a little bit, and what part of your coaching career did you discover Aimpoint, and how has Aimpoint affected your career up until now?
Aimpoint. So when I had my studio, I would coach people on technique to improve start line. I'd fit putters. Having access to the green here at Forrest Pines, we can bring coaching to the green in the summer months, and we can work on distance control. And then people would ask me for advice on how to read greens. Mm-hmm. And I'd quake inside because my ability to read greens with my eyes was, well, if I was a plus handicap golfer on the long game, I was a mid-handicap to high-handicap golfer with my green reading skills.
Okay.
So I was not the person to ask. Putting coach that's not very good at green reading, it just didn't really hang together. There's a missing piece of the jigsaw. And the only method I'd ever heard of where you could teach somebody to read greens was Aimpoint. So I emailed Aimpoint and I kept emailing Aimpoint, and a wall of silence. And eventually I got a reaction. And over the course of between 3 and 4 years from applying to eventually meeting Mark Sweeney, who created Aimpoint, I was trying to become an Aimpoint certified coach, but they have a very select
Criteria?
Yeah, good word, thank you. And they are very particular about who wears this badge.
Yep.
And they were sussing me out. They were doing their housekeeping and their checks
as they should
to establish, does Mark Bentley does he fit the Aimpoint criteria?
Yeah.
Does he know what he's talking about? And eventually, I met Mark at the PGA show in Orlando, and he said, "I've been watching you, and let's get you certified."
That's incredible. It's a very exclusive club.
It really is. We were talking about this earlier when we were having lunch. How many Aimpoint coaches are there in the UK? 13.
I think there are 13 in England.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There might be a couple in Scotland. So.
And it's a very exclusive. It's not. I wouldn't call it a club, but there's 13 coaches.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's one out, one in, because like there's enough coaches to go around for everybody. We want all our coaches to be busy, we want it taught properly. So the 13 that we have, we trust these people, and also there's like a level 1 and level 2 coaches, which we can get into in a minute. Mm-hmm. But you don't need. I think you would agree. You don't need any more than 13 coaches to kind of cover.
I think it's quality, not quantity.
I completely agree with you.
That they look at.
Yeah.
It's not a club.
Yeah.
But it is a club in a way, because to remain a member of the club, you have got to maintain your training with Mark. In the UK, there's Jamie Donaldson, who's based at Woburn. He's the head Aimpoint instructor in this country.
Okay.
And so he holds training sessions for us as well. But yeah, if you don't keep up your training, you can't keep your badge.
How often does a training change over the year?
So COVID's thrown training out the window, because usually Mark would come over, and obviously COVID's put the kibosh on that for a couple of years. They've just had a European. There's usually a European training conference in the spring, and then another one in the autumn. The spring one this year was in Denmark, and the autumn one is usually in Spain. Jamie is hoping to put on some training for us at Woburn in the summer. But it's to make sure that we are doing our job correctly, and to also update us on any research developments that Mark and the people that he works with behind the scenes have created or come up and become aware of, that changes the read. And the read's changed slightly over the years, but not massively. One of the big changes was when the rules of golf changed. And before, when was that? Was that 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago?
2019.
2019. Thanks, Chenji. You are the stat man.
He genuinely is.
He is the stat man.
He knows too much.
Google.
Yeah.
Who needs Google when you got Chenji?
That's it.
Yeah. So 2019, Rule 16.4 disappeared. Rule 16.4 said you could not stand on your line or any part or extension of it. And so we used to teach people to stand low of where they expected the ball to go, so they would not be standing on their line.
Oh, wow.
And then,
Well, we weren't playing golf back then.
No,
I
that's
wasn't.
true. Exactly.
So those old rules, I would know.
you
of.
would not be. No.
Oh, wow.
So you could play golf with somebody that learnt it in 2018, let's say, and they'll be standing on the low side because that's how they were taught. Because you couldn't stand on your line or on the high side because you could be stood over your line. Rule 16.4, 2-shot penalty.
So on the PGA Tour, like on the European Tour, right? People, obviously now you see like people like, for example, Max Homa, right? Yeah. They all like, do the Aimpoint thing, right? But if this was like pre-2019, they would actually be standing on the lower side of the...
Yeah, to stay away from their line.
Well, I did not know that. That's very interesting.
That's really interesting.
And then the rules changed.
Yeah.
And now we tell people, so 16.4 is gone.
So you're good.
It doesn't matter. We tell people to straddle the line.
Yeah, which is, And I think you get a way more accurate reading, no?
The closer you are to straddling the line that the ball is going to take, the more accurate the
big
read.
Time.
Yeah. So obviously, if your etiquette is a very important part of golf, and having respect for your players, fellow players. So if the only time that you would go low is if somebody else's ball was in the vicinity of where you wanted to stand, or you don't want to be standing on somebody else's line. Mm-hmm. So you would stand low of that to keep off their line. But other than that.
Well, I'm going to take a step back again.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Mark, explain to us what Aimpoint
That was my question.
is.
Yeah. So for anybody that doesn't know what Aimpoint is, explain I don't want details because I know what it is, but to the layman, that's just, I wonder what Aimpoint is. Just explain in the best way that you can what Aimpoint is and why people need it.
Okay. So in 2023, Aimpoint is a simple way of identifying the break that a putt will take by using the feel of the slope beneath your feet and converting that slope that you're stood on to a number, which then equates to how many fingers you put up. We talk in percentage terms. So if you're stood on the slope and you think, all right, so I think that's a 3, you'll see people put 3 fingers up.
Yeah.
So I believe you can feel a slope far more accurately than you can see a slope.
I completely agree with you.
I think that, obviously during our recording today, our lesson, right? That was the word that made the most impact to me, right? When Mark said, don't even try to, look at the slope. Feel.
Yeah. After getting lessons with Mark, I've gotten to the point where if it depends who I'm playing, because Aimpoint can take a minute, not a minute, not like a specific minute, but the first time that you're trying to do Aimpoint when Mark is not there or when your coach is not there, you kind of second guess yourself and you're standing over it and you're checking and you're rechecking and you're turning around and you're doing all the bits that you learn. And it can take a while until you fully get used to it, up to the point where you know exactly where to go. You stand and then you're like, okay, that's whatever, 2, 3, whatever, and then you kind of go back and take the shot. So I would do this with people that I know, like Chenji and Stel, where I would take my time, and then I would get to the point where I wouldn't even read the putt, like you said, with my eyes. I wouldn't even go behind the ball. I would literally take 2 steps, 3 steps, read just feel what it was, and then go, okay, that's a 2, and then just go over the ball.
Job done.
And it was amazing because I would almost, I've told you this as well, where I would go behind the ball first and I would say, oh, that's right to left all day. And then I would do my aim point and then I think, no, that's actually left to right. And I would second guess myself.
Yeah.
So what I took out the one step that's not so accurate, me seeing the putt, seeing the line of the green, and me just feeling it, and it's right every time. Like it sounds complicated.
But it's not.
I've told this to Chenji, like I was worried when I came. Was it a 2-hour lesson that we had?
Yeah.
I was worried that first I wouldn't learn anything. Second, if I did learn anything, it would go over my head because it was just too much information. And I was worried that I wasn't going to get my money's worth, but I just wasn't going to learn anything. I was wasting my time. Dude, I left that 2-hour lesson and I was like, everything's changed after that.
You couldn't stop talking about it for like weeks.
I still can't stop talking about it. I've got goosebumps talking about it now. I'm not joking. It's genuinely...
He's not joking.
It's genuinely mind-blowing how easy it is to learn this and how much it actually helps you. So if anybody's out there that's listening or watching, that's struggling with putting, even if you're good and you feel like you can get better and you feel like there's something going wrong, Aimpoint will genuinely like help you so much. It's unbelievable.
And it's, again, actually, I thought it was very intimidating.
Right.
Because I didn't understand it.
Yes.
Because, I mean, you see on TV, again, using the example of Max Homer.
Yeah.
Colin Morikama, I think he does it as well.
There's a bunch of people.
Anyway, a bunch of people who do it, right?
Yeah.
You just see they look with the fancy fingers and doing this, right? And like, you see what they do in terms of like, stepping along, feeling the slope.
Yeah.
And I've always thought that's so difficult. I can't do this.
Yeah.
But literally, I came in today.
Yeah.
Right. And Mark just kind of showed me how to do this.
Yeah. But you still know nothing compared to what you're supposed to learn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Literally, I feel like it just clicked.
Yeah. It is.
Like I could feel what I was going to do. So it's hard to explain.
You've had a taste. You've had the aperitif.
I have the aperitif.
Not even that. It's like a little drop on the tongue.
We had
that's
the
all he's
amuse
had.
bouche. We're not even onto the aperitif yet. All right.
Yeah, you had a sip of
We're on the.
So many metaphors.
You sniffed it.
So many metaphors.
Exactly, but
let's keep this going.
Exactly. No, but again, it's hard to explain in words what Aimpoint is. But once the moment...
It's not. Aimpoint is a method of reading greens using your senses to feel slope. If you can stand up and walk around the planet, you can feel slope. Mm-hmm. So the only thing that you haven't done historically is bring your attention to what slope you're stood on when you're walking around the planet, around the world, in your day-to-day life. You never think, I'm on a 1% slope or a 4% slope here. So that's the only thing that you have to, it's the only skill that people have to learn and develop. And that is a feel thing. And that's something that needs to be practiced, like all feel things. The game of golf is a lot about feel.
Absolutely.
So you need to practice keeping in tune with what slope you're on so that you can then apply that feeling and that knowledge to the putt when you're on the green when you're playing at the weekend or whenever you play. The Aimpoint skill, the method of what you're taught can be taught to 8-year-olds. 8 and 10-year-olds learn Aimpoint and then they've got it for life. So it's Aimpoint Express was designed for kids. It is so simple, it's ridiculous how easy it is. It's like we've had this conversation a few times today. Why did I not think of that? It's so easy. It's like all the best ideas are simple ideas. And this works. But I think it's interesting for people to know where Aimpoint has come from, because in 2023, you're taught Aimpoint Express, and the clue's in the name, Express. Aimpoint does not take very long to read a putt at all. Mm-hmm. Done correctly, you'll be done within 30 seconds, and that's on a 60-footer. Mm-hmm. If you're inside 6 feet, you'll be done in about 2 seconds. So if people are taking longer than 30 seconds to read a putt using Aimpoint, they are not doing it correctly.
Yeah.
And I think people watch what guys do on telly, obviously, naturally, or then they might be talking to a pal who's learned Aimpoint or who's spoken to another guy who's... and it goes down the chain, and then they end up doing something which is nothing like Aimpoint at all, and they end up doing it wrong, and they end up taking too much time, and blah, blah, blah. So if you're going to learn Aimpoint, whether it's from me or whether it's from one of the other certified instructors in the country, make sure you learn it from a certified instructor. Don't just go to your pro who's might have attended a course, because he'll know what he learned on the day, but there's an awful lot more to it
big time.
than that. But Aimpoint is quick. It's quick and easy to do. But I always say to people, I probably said this to you when I taught you, I'm going to put you on 2 curves today. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a learning curve, which will be short, easily digestible. You'll learn. I'm going to teach you what you need to do, and you'll get that. Everybody gets it. I've done hundreds and hundreds of people on the green here at Forrest Pines, and nobody's not got it, right? So everybody gets it. And then I'm going to put you on a belief or a trust curve. And that is the harder of the two, or the longer of the two curves. Because you get the technique in the lesson. You have everything you need to then put it in play after, when that lesson finishes after 2 hours. You get the notes sent to you. You get everything that you've got everything you need. You don't need any training aids.
That's it.
There's no subscription. There's no follow-ups. You don't need anything else. You get everything you need. But then you've got to go and apply it. And you will face putts and you'll think, right, my eyes are telling me it's X. Aimpoint is telling me it's Y. I can't believe I've got to give this putt that much break.
Yeah.
And that's the curve you've got to get over.
Yeah.
And the more putts you miss low, the sooner you'll get over that curve.
I've had a first-hand experience on that today, didn't I?
And aim point is always the correct line.
It'll be right more times than it's wrong. Yeah.
Because it's like
we learned, from 2 episodes ago from Dane, right, that the sort of course management, it's just a probabilities game. It's the same thing applies on the putting green.
Yeah.
Right? If you use Aimpoint, you're just increasing your probability of being right.
Big time. Just forget about reading. There's some people out there.
Trust the signs.
There's some people that are genuinely very good at reading greens with their eyes. And that's fair play to you if you can do that. But if you're a normal person in the world, then you're going to struggle a little bit. Like there's times where, I don't know, you might read it completely wrong. Like how bad was I at reading greens?
You were not reading greens.
Thank you. I told you this when I first met you. I was looking at greens thinking, oh, this is 2 yards to the left and it would be 2 yards to the right. And that's how far off I was.
Yeah.
Like I was averaging 3 putts. Like it wasn't 3 putts in. I wanted to get down to 2. But I was averaging 3 putts. I probably had more shots lost on the green than anywhere else on the course.
That's what I mean. It's the lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah.
It's the easiest.
Yeah.
It's the easiest way to improve your score.
Yeah,
And now you're a 15 handicap, and I think a lot of that has to do with you improving your you hit like some really long drives.
Yeah.
And your iron play is pretty decent as well, especially paired with those ping irons.
Yeah.
That you absolutely love.
I love ping.
And now having worked with Mark multiple times.
Yeah.
Now I think there's only one way from here.
Genuinely is, and I'm glad me and you kept in touch. We
how can you not keep in touch with you? You're infectious,
mate. We genuinely we kicked it off like straight away. We became like friends, right? It's a bit like me and you, mate. It's mad.
No, I mean golf. I mean, as we said many times, off on the record, off the record, the golf just brings people together.
It does, but I've had coaches before, just normal coaches, where it's not they want my money kind of thing. It's they're here to teach me something, and then I'm going to see them maybe in a month's time when I come back for a lesson. But with you, it was so different because we hit it off straight away, and you realized the love of golf, and you saw my mind get blown, and you the more you saw that, the more you wanted to feed into it.
Yeah,
and it was great. It was mind blowing. You should definitely get an Aimpoint lesson.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you know it's the most rewarding lesson to give.
Yes,
because the change that people see that they're making in
straight
front of
away.
It's like I can't believe it.
Yeah. With iron or like driving lessons, they help, but they're going to help in 4 or 5 weeks down the line when you get used to that change. But with Aimpoint and with yourself, with putting especially, you see the change straight away.
So you'll have had lessons, and the guy will say, "Well, change your grip or do this." And you've almost got to get worse before you get better to accommodate that change.
Yeah.
With Aimpoint, there's none of that. You get it, and you'll get better straight away.
Yeah.
It can't hurt you. We're not talking about your putting technique. There's no talk of grip, stance, aim, posture, stroke, mechanics, nothing. It's just purely reading greens. And your putting will get better organically just because you're reading the green properly. Yeah. So you're ruling out one of the reasons that you can miss putts, which is usually a misread.
Yeah. The only thing I need to fix now is my pace. My green reading is great. My pace, as you saw today, was always short. It's never long. So I just need to hit it be a little bit more confident and just hit it a little bit harder.
You know what's so great about Mark? And we had a long conversation about this. He doesn't feel like he's working as a coach.
Mate, I mean, how
I'm living my dream.
I bet you are.
Because it's so satisfying to him to actually make people better. And I think that's the differentiator. It's
teaching something that you genuinely believe in.
It works.
You know it works. So it's so satisfying for you to teach people like us because we're benefiting so much. You go home happy every day.
Yeah, I have good pupils.
That's it. Well, yes. What are some of the, like? Do you get like stubborn players where they just don't listen or don't care?
Yeah, I think you in all walks of life you get people who are open to change, and then others that have a very closed mindset. In this country, we are very reserved, and we don't like change. Really, we want everything to stay the same. So, there are people who are closed to it, and I think that's a shame because they're missing out
big time.
It's got more acceptance. It's developed more acceptance amongst the golfing masses, if you like, over the last few years, as Sky, with their broadcasting of golf, has started to talk about Aimpoint more in positive terms rather than negative terms. Some of the older coaches, let's say, I don't want to be disrespectful, but from maybe a previous generation of coaching, have looked at Aimpoint, and because it's new, they've not accepted it. They talk about Nicholas never using it, Sevi never using it. Well, it wasn't, they couldn't, because it didn't exist then. Yeah. So you've only got to look at who's using it now to realise, well, these are the best players on the planet. They know what works and what doesn't work. And 40% plus of all PGA Tour players, all their caddies, are using Aimpoint every week. Yep. And another stat I heard the other day was over all 4 tours over the last 18 months, Aimpoint's accounted for 50% of the wins. So, you look at Hovland and Scheffler and Cam Smith, and Justin Thomas has just gone over it. Dustin Johnson, Lydia Ko, world number 1. She's used Aimpoint since she turned pro. It's a tried and tested, proved method because it goes back to 110,000 lines of code in a computer program that Mark Sweeney developed. Yeah, it's almost like you're not second guessing yourself. You know it works. You know the method.
Yeah, trust the science. Trust the recipe, right? If you put the same recipe, right, to rise the bread, the bread will rise.
Yeah. How important? Sorry, please.
Yeah, I was going to say. So on the golf course, you'll get a number for your shot, and you've got 150 yards, and you choose your club. On the green, you now measure you're taught where to measure. So you measure, you get your read, you put your fingers up, and you've got your Aimpoint. So it's a method to identify an Aimpoint in the same way that you click your Bushnell to identify a yardage and select a club.
That's very well put. How important are putters in 2023 when it comes to obviously putting and Aimpoint and all that kind of stuff? Does it matter?
Putters?
Yes.
Because we all know, the club manufacturers, right? They promote the drivers. They promote all these different irons, new technologies, speed foam, right? Twist face.
Yeah.
Right, but...
Forgiveness.
All that stuff. I know. Don't get me started on TaylorMade.
I've got a TaylorMade driver.
Yeah.
Me
so
too.
does Chenji.
I just don't like to have that.
Yeah, same. It's a bit too much.
But putters, you don't see them being promoted.
You definitely don't see them when you're watching, let's say, Sky Sports Golf, and an advert comes on, it's always the driver or the newest irons. It's never the putter. How important? Because with me, I've gone through putters more. I don't want to get into it.
You collect them.
I pretty much collect putters at this point. How important is the right putter using Aimpoint?
Well, you're trying to knock a square peg into a round hole if you've got the wrong putter. We could do a whole podcast on that one question. Yeah. I don't know where to start to begin to tell you how important having the right putter is. It is so important. We've all done it. We've all been into American golf or your local pro shop or whatever, and picked up a putter and thought, I quite like the look of that, or so-and-so uses that and he's a good putter. Then you roll it to the chair leg in the pro shop, or you might say, I'll take a few balls and go on the putting green, and you knock them all in. Go on, then I'll buy it. And as soon as you've paid for it, the magic wears off, and you're back to square one again. So, getting a proper fit for a putter is up there with your driver. Why would you get fit for your driver that you use 12, 13 times around max, and you would not get fit for your putter that you're using 30 something plus 40 something plus times around.
It's a great analogy, and I went and got fitted for new wedges on Monday, and I was waiting in the queue to kind of pay for the wedges or whatever, and the guy in front of me was literally holding a putter, and he goes, "Yeah, it was an Odyssey putter, whatever it was," and he goes, "Yeah, I had a couple of putts, great, it feels great, I'm going to buy this."
Yeah,
and I'm thinking, you're going to use that putter, like you said, so many more times than a driver, and why wouldn't you want to spend that little bit extra money and that little bit of extra time, go out and get fitted? Like when I came to your studio, it was like a playground because you had so much gear and so much tech. And not only for me, I find it interesting anyway to kind of learn about all the different, and I couldn't believe how much benefits and how, just how much you can learn just from that a putting stroke. A lot of people just think, yeah, just go behind the ball, square it up and just hit it. But it's so much that goes into it. And this is why there's different putters out there, blades, I don't know, the spider putters or whatever, is it mallets?
Mallet,
yeah.
hybrid.
For as many putters that there are out there, there are more myths and BS on what putter you should use. Honestly, it breaks my heart that the club manufacturers out there, they've got to sell putters.
Yeah.
So they have to hang a story around a certain type of putter. If you've got this stroke, you need this. If you've got that stroke, you need that.
Right.
And it is so far off the mark. It's it's not right to think that everybody, if you are you think you're a certain stroke, you can't pigeonhole people into categories like that and say you need this and you need that. You need to get a proper fitting.
Yeah.
You need to know what alignment works for you. You need your length, your lie. If somebody's got a quintic, they'll be able to dial in the loft for you as well, because every putter has got loft, and you want the ball launching between 1 and 2 degrees and proper roll on it. I use Capto on the green here. Now, I don't do putter fittings anymore, but I'm happy to point people to in the right direction. Putter fittings are usually done indoors, in a neutral environment where you're not open to the elements and you can accurately measure what's going on. I took the decision on the back of bad health last year to close my studio and just focus on coaching on the green here, and then in the winter try and go to some sunnier climbs and do some overseas coaching holidays to Cyprus. We're going to start with Cyprus in November.
Oh, tell us more.
So Aphrodite Hills, I want to say the 3rd of November. Dane, who you met today, and myself are running a 5-night, 4-round trip to Aphrodite Hills, all inclusive. 3 rounds at Aphrodite, 1 round at Secret Valley.
Yeah.
So some quality golf courses, some absolute top class practice facilities.
Yep.
I'm familiar with Aphrodite, not as familiar as you are, of course. But,
especially around the roughs.
Roughs, cliffs, We've seen it all. We've seen every inch.
In the valley.
So you'll be doing me a course map.
Yeah.
Don't go here, here, or here.
Yeah.
So yes, Aphrodite, and I'm going to be talking to people about putting.
Yeah.
So there's coaching every day. Dane's going to be focusing on short game, so it's like 100 yards and in.
Perfect.
And between the two of us, I think we'll bring an army of happier, better golfers back with us.
I would.
So if you'd like to know more, please get in touch.
Yeah, get in touch. All of the links for Mark are down below. Please go check him out on Instagram, and I'll put his website down there as well. I won't put your phone number just in case. You might get some weird phone calls in the middle of the night. But
like that, like he has from you, right?
Yeah.
Texts,
random text. Yeah. It's funny, you were reading the text back.
I was. It made me laugh. Yeah. 20-something of September. I'm trying to book a lesson with you, but I can't seem to get an email to go through your website. And could you let me know how I can book? And so I said, right, here's my email address. Just email me here. Let me know when you'd like to come, and I'll check my availability. And Theo put, I'll be there tomorrow.
And I literally came the next day.
He came the next day.
Very keen.
I need help.
That was my text. I need help. Yeah. And here we are.
A few months, 6 months. What? 6 months later.
Yeah. Going back to Aphrodite Hills, I may join you. We'll see.
Oh, it'd be good if you could.
Because obviously for me, I'm going back home because that's where I'm from. But I would love to have that experience with you guys as well. It'd be good for me, for everybody that's going. It'd be interesting to play a lot of golf with you. Just any excuse to go out and play golf with you and Dane. Maybe you can join.
Absolutely. And November, I think it's one of the most popular times to be in Cyprus, right? Very pleasant.
Well, I tell you, we've been so lucky getting tee times there because there was meant to be a Champions Tour or Legends Tour event at Aphrodite that week.
I'm pretty sure the Cyprus Open usually happens in November.
It is, but it got cancelled and they got all the tee times. And
so
all
we've
the
got
bookings.
their tee times.
That's amazing, right? Yeah.
Like prime time.
Yeah. So it's going to be
So we've
good.
been really lucky and we're working hard to try and fill it. So so if people want to know more, please get in touch.
Wicked. Is there any questions that you were hoping that we would ask?
Personal question.
No, not personal. Like,
actually, I've got a personal question.
Okay. Oh my God. Here we go. Get ready.
From you?
Well, not really a personal question. Actually, a funny question.
Go on.
Would you use Aimpoint in mini golf? Crazy golf.
Would I use?
Can you use Aimpoint in crazy golf?
Question.
Wow, would I use it?
That was such a silly question.
I know.
Right. I wouldn't want. So if I'm playing mini golf, that probably would be with. I was going to say with children.
Or with your wife.
Like Theo has.
Yes, that's right. Well, you wouldn't want to beat your wife, so.
Well.
No,
would you?
I did.
Would you want to be?
Yeah, I
always think happy wife, happy life.
No, mate, no, not with me. It's all about competing. Because if I'm playing, like, let's say you went out with your wife and you played mini golf, and she beat you, she would make sure that you never forget about that.
Yeah, my son beat me once, and he doesn't really play golf.
There you go.
So yeah, he
that
beat
can't
me.
feel nice, can it?
No, it's
exactly.
It's across the bear.
So why
would I use Aimpoint? No, because no, it's just a bit of fun.
No, I don't think you can.
If you can feel a slope, but there are probably that many slopes on mini golf.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
and you don't know what's happening in the windmill, do you? And as it goes through there, so no, I would just keep mini golf as fun.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have fun. Since then, I haven't played, and she's been asking me to go back, and I'm like,
of course, no,
I'm not going.
She wants to rub your nose in it.
Seriously,
yeah. I
mean, you couldn't believe how mad you were. Like in that episode, we were recording an episode, and he just mentioned, "You're never going to believe what's happened to me." I'm just like, oh my gosh.
It was embarrassing because obviously, golf is a big part of my life, and losing to golf to my wife that doesn't play golf, it's not the nicest things, but it is what it is.
Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah, she's definitely
Always.
happy. Yeah, is there any questions that you thought that we would ask that we didn't?
So I know where Aimpoint came from.
Okay.
And why it is. Like I say, in 2023, you just learn a really simplified version of quite a complex system. Mm-hmm. And I think for people to understand, so people see players waving their hands, putting fingers up and wondering what it all is. It's some kind of hocus pocus. It's not. It goes back to this system that Mark Sweeney created, where he laser scanned greens, got 3D scans of greens, and he comes from a software development and software programming and development and business and finance background. So he couldn't understand why putts. He thought he was a good putter, and he just could not understand why his eyes were letting him down on the greens. So he set to. He's the kind of man that will not give up on a challenge until he's cracked the code. So he set to find out what he could about putting. He researched the world for information on putting, and nobody could give him a method by which to putt. So he thought, right, well, I'm going to create that method. And he ended up with scans of the greens, and if he knows the slope of the green, so this is how the computer system would work, which was used by the Golf Channel for about 8 years, I believe. Mm-hmm. If he knew the slope of the green, and all he needed to know was where the ball was, where the hole was, and the speed the green is running at, and he could go click, click, and within 2 seconds, you get the line on the screen. It had to be within 2 seconds because that's what the Golf Channel stipulated. And it was accurate. So it's accurate to the computer system was accurate, I think, to like such small tolerances, it's not worth talking about.
Yeah.
I thought, how can I get that into players' hands? So he developed charts, which were highly accurate. They cross-checked the data of the charts to the computer system, and it works. And the charts, I think, this is my own version of events, so this might not be true, but I think the charts maybe at times slowed people's game because they were having to do a bit of a calculation. And that slowed the game down. And the game is already slow enough.
Yeah.
So when people hear Aimpoint, some people think, oh, it's too slow. Maybe that's what they're thinking. I don't know. It's certainly not slow now, Aimpoint Express. But the charts would give you a distance. So it would give you a number in terms of inches as to how far left or how far right of the hole to aim. And it was highly accurate. So let's say you got 38 inches left of the hole. Well, that's very difficult from 20, 25, 30, 40, 50, 50. What does 38 inches look like? How do you know what 38 inches is? We all know what, but to visualize it, that's very difficult. So it turned a lot of people off Aimpoint, I think, that maybe appreciated it works, but no, that's not how I can work. I can't see 38 inches or 12 inches or 15 inches, whatever it is. So the charts were accurate, but didn't suit everybody. It wasn't what Mark calls athletic enough. It was a bit too scientific. So Brian Gay was using Aimpoint, and Brian Gay still plays on PGA Tour. And Mark Sweeney went to Brian and he said, look, we're trying to develop a more user-friendly, quicker, athletic way of converting the charts into play. And we're using thumbs at the moment. So he went to Kapalua in Hawaii, first tournament of the year, and he read every putt with his thumbs. Or thumb. He broke the course record and he won the tournament in the process. From then, so he knew he was onto something. And I can imagine the conversation was something like, right, well, the thumbs are good. Not quite as good as the charts, but it's good. But it's good, but it could be better in this and this.
Yeah, yeah.
And they were just playing around with fingers and thumbs, and everybody needs a bit of luck every now and again. And they started to use fingers to match percentages. So if you're on a 3% slope, you would put 3 fingers up, and 1% is 1 finger. So, and it's uncannily accurate. And I suppose that was the eureka moment that we've got something here that works. So you can check reference Aimpoint Express back to the chart, back to this incredibly complex computer system that Mark created originally, and it all blends together as one. So you can be in no doubt that when you're putting your fingers up to get a read, you're not guessing. That's a scientific read.
Yeah.
I think you're guessing when you use your eyes.
Big time.
I can't. Super interesting.
Nobody can tell me, and I couldn't say to you or the audience that are watching and listening to this, how I read greens before I used Aimpoint. I don't know what I know what I was looking at. I was looking at the grass.
Eyeballing it. That's what you call it.
Eyeballing.
What am I trying to? Yeah, but which bit? What am I trying to do? What am I basing my decision on where to aim on? I've got no answer to that. And nobody can give me an answer. Not a detail. If you drill down and keep asking that question, they run out of. They can't tell you.
Do you most of your lessons that you do at the moment, are they mainly Aimpoint, or is it just normal putting as well?
Oh, it's a mixture. Yeah. So Aimpoint's a big part of what I do, but I'm primarily a putting coach, and Aimpoint reading greens is just part of being a putting coach.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm giving lessons on start line. I've got everything from a 10-year-old little girl up to seniors. So there's I've got a mixed bag of players in there, from raw beginners to fewer of those, because they are conditioned to try and hit it far on the driving range, because that's what the marketing boys have got into their head with forgiveness, haven't they? So. So it tends to be better players, or more players who are already established in the game, who are realizing that they can lower their scores by improving their putting. I give putting lessons Usually Fridays I'm giving a clinic either here or somewhere else. I've got clinics. I've got one at Fulford Golf Club in York this Friday. That's full. I've got one in Mottram Hall in Cheshire on the Wednesday just before the Open. Yeah. So if anybody's over in Cheshire looking to learn Aimpoint, maybe check that one out. But if you go to aimpointgolf.com and scroll across to the UK, you'll be able to find clinics and other instructors who are doing exactly the same as I.
Out of 13 people in the UK, I'm sure you'll find Mark.
Oh, yeah,
very
big time.
soon.
How easy is it for you to, I've asked you this question before, but I want it for the podcast, for you to call different clubs and say, hey guys, my name is Mark Bentley. I'm an level 2 Aimpoint coach. I would love to come down to your club and do a clinic. How easy do you find that? And is it something that you want to do?
So if you go on that website, aimpointgolf.com, and you'll see that there are different, you can go to find an instructor and you will see different instructors have got different numbers. So
okay, yeah.
Where I am, I've got a number 2. Number 2. As opposed to a number 1. So number 1 means you're a level 1 Aimpoint instructor. You either have not got that much experience with Aimpoint, or you are quite happy just coaching it at your club where you're based. So a level 1 coach is only licensed to teach Aimpoint at their appointed club. A level 2 means that you're more established, or you want to. Well, you have to be more established and experienced to become a level 2 coach, and then you can coach it at other clubs. So this year, I have tried for the first time to put a series of clinics on really across Yorkshire and across the M62 corridor. There's only so many days in my life that I can do this, and there's only so many hours in my day. Yeah. So I've chosen Friday afternoons, and it's surprising. I've approached some clubs that have said no, we don't want to do that, okay. For whatever reason. Yeah. And I've got others that have said yes, and I've had no takers. And then I've had others that have said yes, and it's full. And it all depends on who is stood on the other side of the counter at that golf club, saying to their members, hey, Theo, hey, Chenji, your putting sucks. Yeah, you could really make a difference to your game. Get booked onto this. So if any pros out there are keen to host an Aimpoint clinic, I'm keen to talk to you.
Big time, because I feel like, it's like you said, a lot of pros at these clubs that you may call might not agree with Aimpoint, or not only they don't agree with it, like, oh yeah, they've seen it around, but they don't actually know what it is.
Correct, yeah.
And they might not try and sell it as much as they should try and sell it, if that makes sense.
Because they don't know what they're selling.
Because they don't know what they're selling.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, if they knew how good it was, which I'm sure a lot of people do, then there's no reason why you wouldn't want to host this at your club.
I'll tell you who's helped explain it in a way that they never used to before. Going back to Sky,
yeah,
Nick Doherty,
yeah,
he loves Aimpoint,
yeah,
and
he's now part of Live.
What? Nick Doherty?
Is he? I think so. I don't know.
No, he's Sky's like lead man.
Yeah. You might be thinking of a different Nick.
Different Doherty. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, different guy, I think. So Nick is a big fan of Aimpoint. Took it upon himself to go and learn what it is he's commentating on. So he saw an increasing number of players using it and thought, well, what is this? Mm-hmm. So I went and learnt it. Couldn't believe how easy it was, how quick it was. He's taught it to his son, who's playing golf. And he does these tea time tips. So Nick Doherty on Instagram does these tea time tips, and somebody asked a question about what is Aimpoint, and he could not speak highly enough of it. And he can only do that because he's learnt it. So I think your point is correct.
Yeah.
Maybe it's difficult to get guys to book onto clinics because they don't know what they're booking onto. They don't the pro that's trying to sell it, and they make money out of this. You know, I'm not expecting anybody to give me their putting green and their members and them not be financially rewarded for this. So, I think it's probably a good point that they don't know what they're actually trying to sell to their members.
Yeah.
But But in time they will.
Because, big time. I completely agree.
It really is. It's growing every week.
Yeah.
Every week on tour.
Yeah. You see it more and more and more. And it's good because...
Especially the young people.
Yeah.
The future, right? This gets taught in all the major university programs.
Yeah.
Now.
All the colleges learn it. So
exactly.
Yeah, Sweeney right now, in the spring, they have a program of working with lots of the colleges in the States who are producing the next generation of tour players.
Arizona State, Wake Forest, Stanford Golf.
It's this thing is only going to get bigger, and I can't wait to be the guy that's like, I told you so. Like, you should have done this 2 years ago or a year ago. But yeah,
Rice and Slice podcast was there first.
Rice and Slice podcast.
Imagine how Mark Sweeney feels. Because he was. He just came up against brick wall after brick wall after brick wall at the beginning. Saying no, you can't. You can't predict putting.
Yeah, people must have thought he was crazy.
Yeah.
Like even speaking the idea, he goes, "No, you need to hear me out. This actually works."
Yeah, and proved it, and he's proven it.
There you go.
And I think the important thing is not only has he proved it via data and like percentages, but now
tour wins,
simplifying.
Amazing.
No, seriously, the biggest thing I think in 2023 is now, first of all, the rule change, right? That you can now stand on the line.
Yeah.
And
it was accurate before Chenji.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now it's
more.
Now it's even
easier.
more accurate. Yeah.
You're making it again. For mass adaptation to happen, you need to make it simple to understand because most people are actually a bit stupid like me.
Well, I don't think you're stupid, but it's Aimpoint.
Use your fingers.
Yeah, you need
and feel the greens.
If you don't know about Aimpoint, please look into it. Mark's details are on the link description below. Please go follow Mark. Massive shout out and thank you to Forrest Pines for having us here today, for letting us mess around on the golf course, for treating us to food, to drinks, to thank you guys. We can't thank you enough. We can't wait to come back. I would love to get around in anywhere with you.
All 27 holes.
Yeah, just anywhere. I don't care if it's here or anywhere. I will come find you. You can come find me. I don't care. I mean, this is a very long friendship. I feel like, and this is only the beginning.
Distance.
Yeah. Well,
and long standing relationship.
So thank you guys for listening. Mark, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for.
I have a feeling that you will be back on the podcast.
I think there's so many things that we haven't talked about.
Yeah, big time.
We could talk all day.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. And it's so easy as well between us. So sometimes if Chenji is on holiday and he can't do a podcast, I might just come up and record a podcast with you.
He's already thinking about replacing me.
No, definitely not. I can't replace you, Chenji. I love you too much.
Two's company. Three's a crowd.
Yeah. Right. Thank you guys
I know my place, Chenji.
We will see you again next week. Thank you, Mark, again.
Okay,
thank you.
my pleasure.
Please subscribe. Thank you.
That was great.